21-year-old girl attends Boston Conservatory as a dancer. She's a senior, ready to graduate, and hopefully become a professional dancer as part of a company. At Boston Conservatory, they don't enforce a dress code, so she could wear loose clothing to rehearse in. But for dress rehearsal, she needed to wear just a leotard and tights. As soon as the directors and choreographers saw her in just a leotard and tights, they stopped the dress rehearsal and pulled her aside. Next thing we know, she's taken out of Boston Conservatory and sent to a local rehab center. Why? Because she's anorexic. And the effects are more than prevalent. This girl happens to be one of my great friends. And as a dancer, I've observed the development and struggles of anorexia in different girls around me. Anorexia nervosa, according to dictionary.com, is defined as an eating disorder primarily affecting adolescent girls and young women, characterized by pathological fear of becoming fat, distorted body image, excessive dieting, and emaciation. Now, many of you may be familiar with this general definition, but many of you are probably not familiar with the fact that, according to the International Journal of Eating Disorders, approximately 10 million females and 1 million males in the U.S. are struggling with anorexia and or bulimia. Furthermore, according to Demystifying Anorexia Nervosa, an optimistic guide to understanding and healing by Alexander R. Lucas, anorexia is the third most common chronic disease amongst teenage girls. Whether we know it or not, most of us know someone personally who has struggled with anorexia or is struggling with anorexia, or unfortunately will struggle with anorexia in the future. A deeper understanding of anorexia nervosa comes from understanding the pre-existing psychological causes and the physiological effects it has on the body. In Julia Buckroyd and Sharon Ruther's Psychological Responses to Eating Disorders and Obesity, recent and innovative work, they discuss the several pre-existing psychological conditions that can cause anorexia, make a person more vulnerable or susceptible. Anorexia is very much a psychiatric disorder rather than a physical one. First of all, people who develop anorexia tend to struggle with perfectionism. In a book titled In and Out of Anorexia, a girl named Eilert shares her testimony in anorexia, and she talks a little bit about the role that perfectionism played. She said, "I know that perfectionism is what enabled me to receive good grades in school and to succeed in everything I did. Yet it also made me suffer from the gnawing need to always do things the right way and from the ever-present fear of making mistakes." I can relate personally because I myself am a perfectionist in certain areas, and in fact, I think all of us are. We just have different areas. So for someone who's anorexic, perfection in their mind is absolutely no fat on the body, even though it's healthy to have some fat. So they'll keep going, and they'll never be content, which is the most tragic part. Second of all, people who develop anorexia tend to have difficulty in set shifting. Now, set shifting is the ability to switch your mindset. So many of us, even though we have a strong perspective on something, we'll be able to step out of our shoes, talk to someone, reason, and it's healthy. But for someone who struggles with anorexia, the way they see their body is the way they see their body. And it takes a lot of therapy and a lot of work to get out of that and to change their perspective on that. So now that we've talked about some of the pre-existing psychological causes, perfectionism and difficulty in set shifting, let's look at the physiological effects that anorexia can have on the body. In Lucas's Demystifying Anorexia Nervosa, an optimistic guide to understanding and healing, he discusses the internal and external effects that anorexia has on the body. Internally, anorexia causes the heart rate to slow. It pumps the blood through the body a lot slower because it's compensating for the lack of nutrition. Second of all, it causes the body to grow lanugo, which is this fine hair, and it grows up. Normally, girls grow it on the back and on the back of their arms. They're not exactly sure why this happens, but theories say that they're making up for, the body knows what it needs, and it's making up for the lack of fat, because your fat keeps a certain heat within your body, and you need a certain heat to function. Also, the bones become very brittle because of decalcification. My friend, who's 21 years old, currently has the bones of an 80-year-old. And finally, for female victims, it causes the menstrual cycle to cease, unfortunately eliminating girls' possibility of having children in the future. Externally, anorexia leaves the body looking angular rather than round. The skeletal structure becomes more and more prevalent as the muscular structure fades away. Anorexia nervosa has pre-existing psychological causes that lead to severe physiological effects. Currently, my friend spends 3 hours of therapy a day and isn't allowed to do any activity that will burn any calories. It isn't fair that anorexia took away her passion and her dream to dance, but I know she's just one of many cases out there. I hope that she, as well as many other struggling anorexics, will find the road to recovery soon.